What is an NFT? People are making millions buying and selling NFTs.
Today, we are interviewing an OG in the space, a real goat, Gmoney, to help us understand what are NFTs, why they're here to stay, and how you can make millions investing in them. It's going to be a jam-packed show with lots of insights like we have every single week here on Goats and the Metaverse. Stan, how are you, my man?
I am living the dream. I'm excited. This is the first time, and I don't want to give it all away, where we have a guest in costume, or I don't even know what you call it.
An avatar.
An avatar. And now we have a real life avatar on the show. I'm excited. Before we get on with Gmoney, let's talk about the Goat Vault.
The Goat Vault. Well, the Goat Vault. We've had a good week in the Goat Vault land. We did not buy any new NFTs, and it still went up $12,000. It is sitting on $47,333. Just a reminder about what the Goat Vault is. We have invested $2,660 of our own money buying NFTs and locking them away into the vault. And since then, since we started 13 weeks ago, that $2,660 investment is now worth almost $50,000. And you can win it by subscribing to the show. Once we reach 5,000 subscribers, you will have the chance of winning one of the NFTs in the vault. Let's show them what some of those NFTs are.
What's in the vault? What's in the vault? By the way, last week we were at about 35 grand. This week we went all the way to $47,000. 12,000 plus in a week. What's the ROI on that?
That was a 30% gain in 1 week, and I think there's two particular NFTs that made that happen. We have a cool cat in there that's now sitting on a floor price of about 9.5 ETH, and some World of Woman that did some good jump in portfolio value and was a big contributor. So like we said, these NFTs, every single week, we are getting into the drops for you. We're adding them into the vault, and for being a loyal early subscriber, you stand the chance of winning this vault. So subscribe, share this with your friends, share this with your parents, your mom, your dad, anyone. Tweet about it, and that's the only way that this vault will open up. And we'll continue to be buying into those NFT drops on your behalf so that we can build this community and make it the biggest NFT giveaway ever.
Ever. And, last week I think you're like, oh, we're going to get to like a few $100,000 by the time we get to 5,000 subscribers. And I was like, I feel like we're going to get to 5,000 subscribers in like 30 years. But at the rate we're going, you know what?
$100,000 is going to happen a lot sooner.
A lot sooner. Well, here's something exciting. We're going to go on to Market Movers. And for the first time in history, we have a guest joining us during Market Movers, where we talk about what the heck's been going on in the world of NFTs. Without further ado, we got Gmoney up in the house.
Gmoney, how are you, my man?
Hey guys, how are you?
Living the dream, brother. How are you?
Good, thanks. How's everything?
I don't know. The NFT market is on fire.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it looks like from that chart, right? I guess the first question I have is, how many squiggles do you have in that vault?
0.
Oh, I mean, you need to be getting one in there, right?
Well, you see, we started when squiggles had already exploded, and we said we're going to take $10,000 and put that in and see what we can do with that $10,000 to make our subscribers lots and lots of money. I got to figure out how to change my face to a punk. I love what you've done. And we're going to go deep into your story on why the punk, what gave you the idea, the backstory, where you are today, everything. We're going to dive into it. But for our listeners, Gmoney is an OG in this space. He's one of the most known collectors out there. So we thought it'd be great to do the market movers together with him and get his insights on why things are moving the way they are, where he's thinking, and get that perspective. And then we'll dive deeper into his story. So Gmoney, these are the market movers. This is what we cover every week. What's up, what's down, and what are the big news that's happened from the week? Stanley, why don't you kick us off and tell us?
Yeah. First 3 spots seem to be automatic between Axie, Art Blocks, and CryptoPunks. Every week we check in with them. They kind of trade places, but they seem to be the staple. Gmoney, why is Art Blocks, and you said Chromie Squiggle's not in there, why is Art Blocks and CryptoPunks always in the top 3? Tell us your 2 cents.
I mean, they're just historically relevant, right? Like CryptoPunks, even though they're not the first, they're one of the first, but like they had a really organic community that built around them. And I think Art Blocks is kind of taking that and taking it one step further, right? Like Snowfro, the founder of Art Blocks, is an original CryptoPunks claimer. He had part of his inspiration for making Art Blocks, right, was because when he was claiming CryptoPunks, you could pick which punk you wanted to claim, right? And so he was like, well, this isn't really fair, right? Because like if you know the rarity charts, you can just go and claim like all like the rare ones or whatever. Like it'd be way more fair and more interesting if like you didn't know what you were claiming, but obviously everyone pays the same price. So that was really like the genesis of Art Blocks, and he has, I think, been working on that since 2017 when he claimed, or he at least had the idea when he claimed CryptoPunks, right? So it's like, I think a lot of the success you're seeing from Art Blocks is Snowfro not just being like one of like the founding people of the CryptoPunks community and understanding and seeing that from like day one, but also like taking that a step further. Like I think Art Blocks is probably one of, if not the best community in NFTs with regards to how interactive the community is and how everyone is involved on the drops and stuff.
And we're seeing, and you can't see it on this chart here, Art Blocks is close to reaching $1 billion in total volume and sales. They're sitting on $908 million since then. And as you heard from Gmoney, being early in the space from 2017, it looks like an overnight success, but actually this is a platform that has slowly been building in the background every single day for 4 years. And now people are starting to pay a tribute to it and see the beauty and the brilliance of what Snowfro had originally envisioned way back already 4 years ago.
Yeah, well, I guess let me just clarify that, because like the Art Blocks platform, I think went live like in November of last year, but Snowfro was actually like, he started working on it, I think in 2017, 2018. Actually, like I think at one point Snowfro was the biggest owner of zombies, of CryptoPunk zombies. And he actually was selling zombies at now obviously insanely low prices to fund the building out of Art Blocks initially, because he was having trouble getting people to believe his vision, right? So it's so crazy to see how that has evolved over time to this be probably one of, if not the best art platform in crypto right now.
So I'll ask you the question, put you right on the spot. I mean, I think we're all in agreement that Art Blocks and CryptoPunks are top 3 projects going forward. Do you think that one of them is going to kind of surpass the other one and say like CryptoPunks is number 1 or Art Blocks is number 1? I mean, we had Zenek on the show who seemed to favor Art Blocks. Some people say no, CryptoPunks is going to become the OG or become the most popular one because there's only 10,000 of them. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think I don't think you compare Art Blocks as a whole to CryptoPunks, right? Because Art Blocks is a platform. There's different collections within the Art Blocks platform. So like, I think probably the most comparable collection to CryptoPunks is Chromie Squiggles, which is Snowfro's like that's the project that he made, and it was almost like proof of concept. And it was because there was 10,000, it was probably one of the first like odes to CryptoPunks that we see all the time, right? Like the 10,000 profile pictures. So I think that Art Blocks is a platform, CryptoPunks is a project, and so that makes them different. But then I also think that like for the most part, right, like you have CryptoPunks is like an avatar, right? Like it's like you're gonna post it as your avatar. Like a lot of times for art, you even see this on Twitter now, right? Like you don't necessarily see people using it as their avatar, maybe as a banner or in their galleries. It's not so much as an identity thing. So I think like there's a world where they can be both successful over time. And they both have been, obviously, right? But I think that like it'll probably ebb and flow, right? Where just much like certain styles come in and out of vogue in fashion and in art, you'll probably see the same thing over the long term, right? Where and maybe at some point punks are number one and art blocks could be number one, but like that doesn't necessarily mean that those are the only two, right? Like you could also see other new projects come out and eclipse them, right? Like we just don't know, right? That's the beauty of NFTs, is that this is all like such a new industry. And like in 1997, right, the number one search engine in the world was Lycos or Alta Vista or something, and like they don't exist today, right? Like not to say that these won't exist, but like you never know when the Google can come on.
So we see clearly from this chart in the last week that Cool Cats has come on strong. They're another project who has crossed the 10 ETH floor. What are your thoughts on Cool Cats and both from a short perspective?
I miss Cool Cats. I try to stick to, I don't try to mint every project that comes out. I would much rather wait and see how the community develops and how I feel about the community before I start delving in. So like to me, and also like I have a large CryptoPunks position, I have a large Art Blocks position, and to me, without a doubt, these are two projects that retain value over time and probably go higher. And so a lot of times when I'm looking at like my allocation and what I want to own, it's like, do I want to sell something that I know is a guaranteed blue chip for something that might not be a guaranteed blue chip, right? So it's like, to me, there's much more risk involved. So I'm very much more willing to wait to see that community develop. Admittedly, because of that, I miss out on a lot of these like low mints that end up mooning. But I'm okay with that, right? Because like I'm not a short-term trader. I'm more of a long-term collector, and I'm not necessarily buying something to flip it in a month or two.
What are you looking for when you're assessing on this is something that you're going to be a long-term collector in? And is there anything on the market movers list that we shared that you would say meets that criteria outside of punks and the stuff that you're buying on Artblocks?
I would say the stuff on the list, the one that comes out to me the most is the Cryptodes by Gremplin, and I minted a bunch of those. I think it was a couple weeks ago at this point, and like I thought like the artwork was cool, fun, quirky. Like he's part of like the Nouns DAO founding team, and like to me it was just like a lot of times it comes down to artwork, right? Like do I like the artwork? And it's as simple as that, right? Like I also am very cognizant of, I understand that my wallet gets tracked. So, sometimes I could be buying something just because I like the artwork. So it's like, hashtag not financial advice, but like, I know that people are going to follow no matter what. Right. So it's like, sometimes if I buy something and I don't have that much conviction, somebody else could be aping in just because they saw me buy some. Right. And I understand that happens. So I try to be a little more deliberate with what I buy because of that. Right. Because the last thing I want to do is like, maybe I spend $500 on something, and to me, I'm okay with losing that, but that $500 could be really significant to somebody else. And I don't want anybody necessarily losing money because I was like, oh, like, I just think that's funny. Right. So I'm willing to do that. Right. So I try to be cognizant of that.
And to piggyback off that, I mean, you said you missed out on Cool Cats, and you're more comfortable in having a bigger position and blue chip projects. But I guess at what point do you decide that, hey, this is something that does look like it's real or has the legs, the community is there? At what point do you ape it?
I don't know. I think it's like different for every project. It's like maybe if I'm talking to somebody like a friend whose opinion I trust and they red pill me on it, then like I'll ape in, right? And I won't be buying maybe as big of a position as I could have if I aped in earlier, but it's like, oh, I like this, like I mess with that, right? So it's like I think it's a little different for everyone. Like, the cryptos, like I said, that those were the things that I'm like, all right, cool. Like I was actually, I gifted like 2 of them, like last week or the week before, as gifts for friends whose birthday it was. And then like, I looked at the floor, I'm like, oh man, like that was a really nice gift I gave him. Right. Like, it's like, but it's like, I'm also kind of paying it forward a little bit. Like I got gifted a Bored Ape really early, which I haven't sold. And so it's like, it's one of those things that like, I think that's the beauty of crypto is kind of switching from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance. And once you actually make that switch, and I don't know, I think it happens at a different time for everyone. It's like, it's such a great feeling of being able to give somebody something and watch it, like appreciate it. Right. And it's like, oh yeah, like I gave you something and I'm okay with like quote unquote missing out on the upside, right? Because it was like a gift and like I want you to enjoy it, and whether you sell it or keep it, it doesn't matter to me, right? But that like to me is like the real like the beauty of what everything that's going on in the space.
Nice gift, Bored Ape, huh? Good front.
Yeah, I mean, I think I got it when I think the floor might have been like 1.5, and so I got it as a gift. I'm like, all right, cool. Like generally, like I'm like, I don't need the liquidity, so I'm gonna hold on to it for the ride.
And what are your thoughts on Bored Ape?
I love them. I think if you were to take a look at Bored Apes and compare that to punks, I mean, the Bored Ape team is doing everything that Larva Labs isn't doing, right? They're communicating a lot with the community. They have an active roadmap and sharing that with the community. And I think that they're filling a void that was kind of left there by Larva Labs, for better or worse, right? Like we don't know how this plays out long term, but in the short term, it's worked out to Bored Ape's benefit. I love what they're doing. I think the guys that run it, I've spoken to them a bunch of times at this point, and they have a really good heads on their shoulders, and I'm excited to see what they're coming up with next.
And when you guys when you communicate, you're rocking the avatar and they're rocking the avatars, and it's like a big avatar product.
Yeah, well, either that or we just go no video.
Just messing with you.
And I mean, you've chosen your avatar to be a CryptoPunk and an OG one at that. What do you think that represents in your commentary on what Bored Apes are doing, everything that Larva Labs aren't? That implies that you think that over time Bored Apes may supersede CryptoPunks as the OGs in this space. Is that an accurate assessment, or am I reading too much into that?
I mean, I think you're reading too much into it. I think they're again, I don't think this is like a zero-sum game, right? Like I think CryptoPunks will hold value for certain reasons over time that will be different than why Bored Apes hold value over time, right? And whether they flip or they don't, to me, like, is irrelevant. Like, I have my thesis on CryptoPunks, and like I think they're historically significant. And I think even if Ethereum were to burn to the ground over the next 5 to 10 years, CryptoPunks, and as long like will be historically significant, right? Like there will be punks in museums, I think 50 to 100 years from now, right? Because this is the beginning of a movement that is significant for the art industry, right? And I think as a whole, CryptoPunks play a very, very pivotal role in that. So like to me, it's like it's not necessarily about one competing against the other. It's I'm very comfortable with the amount that I have and the exposure that I have, and I like, to me, this is like my ape is hopefully, knock on wood, a legacy asset that I'm passing on to my grandchildren, over time.
Which is a great way of looking at it, and I think some people have that mentality, and some other people are like, well, at what point do we, take profits off the table? At what point do we, go sell our ape or our punk and go buy a house or whatever it might be? Yeah. And I think my question to you is, most people that are coming into the game, obviously some of them are coming in later, some of them are just coming into. What do you tell those people? How do you, how do you look for a single? How do you look for a home run? What are some things to consider?
So I have a finance background. I've been trading equities for about 20 years before getting into the crypto / NFT space in particular. I've been in crypto since 2017. But as somebody that comes from traditional finance and made money professionally 20 years as a trader, I can tell you that trading is really hard, and that the best and easiest money is just being long, right? Like just being long the super cycle. And so like to me, it's like, a lot of times when I see people like trying to trade and, trying to, it's fun and it's good when everything's on the way up. But when that inevitable bear market comes and, you could get left holding a bag of something that maybe is not worth that much, or doesn't have any residual value long term, it can get scary, right? So it's like, to me, I tell people, like, they ask me what to buy, and I tell them to buy the blue chips. If they can't afford to buy a blue chip, buy a fractionalized version of the blue chip, right? Like put in like portfolio allocation, right? Where it's like, if you want to have, let's say 10% of your overall portfolio in crypto, some subset of that should be in NFTs, in like, let's say CryptoPunks or Squiggles or Bored Apes, right? Like, something like that it's like, it just increases your returns over time, much the same way that like adding Bitcoin or Ethereum to your regular stock and bond portfolio like decreases that volatility and increases your return.
So speaking of those blue chips, and they're on our market movers, it's number one on the list, and it's a question from our viewers as well. What's your thoughts on Axie?
I mean, I love Axie. I think that I invested in the round in, I believe it was early February or early March, and I have owned a lot of Axie, like the token, and I think that like it's a great life-changing product for a lot of people around the world. I think play to earn is going to change lives, and I think it'll probably change the way the world economy works in the long term. I really am actively looking to. I have been working with scholarship programs to fund scholarships to kind of start this flywheel effect in a lot of third world countries. And like, I really do think like, the stories you hear about how people's lives change, and how they're able to kind of pay for food, right? When they maybe got laid off their job last year. Like, to me, it's like life-changing stuff. And I think play to earn as a category will be this massive winner in the long term. And I do think like the cool thing about Axie is that there doesn't seem to be much competition coming in for a pretty long time. So like a lot of people, and if you take a look at Axie, the token, the governance token, it's like really undervalued compared to like every other like crypto protocol out there, because it's generating so much cash, right? And so to me, like long term, like I'm okay with holding a position, because I think that like for me the fundamentals look great.
Do you look at, let's say, the entire kind of NFT world? Like this past week, we saw X copy sell a piece for 1,300 ETH, right? And one could say it's art, right? X copy is an OG. This is art, and there's almost some validation to say that this is actually, worth over $3 million, right? And then you have kind of your avatar projects, and this is, one side of it is CryptoPunks, another OG in the space, versus Bored Apes. You're making a cultural movement, and then you're talking about things like Zedrun and Axie, which have utility to it. Do you categorize it as like almost like three separate avenues, and kind of there's going to be leaders in each, or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I think like there's like, I mean, when you think of the real world, right, and you think of the fact that everything in the real world is an NFT, right, then you have to be categorizing NFTs themselves in different categories, right? Because like you have your retail sector, you have your food sector, you have like all these different sectors in the real world economy, and that's going to come as they come on chain. You're going to have those sectors as well. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if like 3 to 5 years from now, we're no longer referring to things as NFTs, because like NFTs is going to be such a broad category, right? Like you're going to be like, oh, this is like my I don't know, my D hat, my digital hat, or like this would be my digital shirt, right? Like because to call it to just be like, hey, this is my NFT shirt or my NFT hat will probably be too long. So like I wouldn't be surprised if we see some sort of other naming mechanism over time as just the category becomes more broad, right? Because as more stuff comes on chain, we're going to need to categorize it better.
It's kind of like what we saw with the move towards the cloud, and everything was cloud this, cloud that, and now it's just the internet and it's online, and you are using software that's online, and that has disappeared. Is what you're.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, of course it's on the cloud, right? Like, why would you think it's not on the cloud?
Where else would it be? So how did you get your start into this, Gmoney? Like how did this all come about?
So honestly, it happened because of Fortnite. That was like really like the reason. I on the first day of quarantine last year, I bought a PlayStation. I hadn't played a video game in about 10 years. I downloaded Fortnite because I wanted to see what like everyone was talking about. I started playing with my friends and their like 12-year-old nephews. And the first thing these kids asked me is, what skins did I buy? And I'm like, skins? Like that's stupid. Like I'm not buying any skins. This game is free to play. Like why am I going to buy a skin that doesn't give me special powers? And then after about a week or so, I'm buying a bunch of skins. And I realized, I'm like, you know what? There's going to be this massive super cycle here. I still didn't know what an NFT was. This was in March of 2020. And I realized that there's going to be this massive super cycle here of that kid is 12 years old today. 10 years from now, he's going to be 22. He's going to have his own disposable income, and he's going to be totally okay with owning a purely digital asset. So I'm like, there's going to be like, I have to find a way to take advantage of this. I don't know how I can express this, right? Because I come from equity. So I don't know what company can I buy to give me exposure. At the time, Roblox wasn't a publicly traded company, which would have been like my first guess, right? Like that's how, get into Minecraft, get into Roblox. And then I found NFTs towards the end of the summer last year. And when I started going down the NFT rabbit hole, it started to make sense to me like almost immediately, because I was like, oh, this is your Twitter profile picture, your Discord picture, your Telegram picture. This is your skin in the current metaverse. So of course, like people are going to spend money to show how they want to be displayed, right? Like, and the better part about it is like knowing how humans interact. Humans like to kind of put themselves on this social hierarchy, for better or worse. This is, I think, just part of human nature. And just because we'd be interacting in a digital manner didn't mean that would change of the way we think of things psychologically, right? Because like if you take a look at I think watches are a perfect example, right? Like the utility value of a Rolex watch and a Casio watch is the same, right? Like, but yet you're still paying magnitudes more for a Rolex watch when they both tell you time and nothing else. Technically, probably the Casio watch probably has more utility because you can do more stuff with it. But yet, what does it say about the person wearing the Rolex watch, right? And what does it say about that person without them having to say it, right? Because like, I think as humans, the way we interact with each other is like, if I come up to you and I tell you how much money I made last year, like you think that's really weird. Like, why would this guy tell me that, right? But if I come up to you and you see that I'm wearing a really nice watch, you're like, oh, like, this guy is very successful. I don't need to know how much money he makes because I know about how much his watch costs, right? And that's just how humans operate in my view. Whether it's watches, cars, what the way people look, clothes, and how they accessorize themselves. So to me, like when I realized that, I was like, hey, like I think this is a massively underpriced asset, an asset class. And to me, I viewed it as a very, very cheap call option on ETH, because much the same way that when the stock market is all-time highs, so is real estate, so is wine, so is luxury cars, and all these things that rich people will spend their money on because they're rich. It's like, well, what will be the crypto native version of that? And that to me, I was like, oh, it's going to be punks, right? Like that's, because as I was hanging out in all these Discords, the people that understood the NFT space the most had crypto punks as their avatars, right? And I'm like, oh, like, what does that say? It's like, not only are you successful that you can afford to buy, at the time was $1,000 or $2,000 picture of a punk, but you also understand the market, right? And so that is only like increased over time. And that was pretty much my thesis.
And that was a year ago, and you seemingly timed it perfectly and understood all of the social dynamics, the social flex, and everything that's going to happen on that front, and decided that you were going to double down on that thesis, launch this profile called Gmoney, and create a brand out of that. What was the thinking there?
Well, my thought process behind it was like, I'm seeing the world in a different way than a lot of people, especially at the time. Like when I spent $150,000 on my punk, like it was unheard. That was the most amount ever spent on a crypto punk from a notional value. And people were like, oh, you're an idiot. Right click save, right click save. So that's why like I kind of wrote my thread that like that went viral on crypto Twitter. And people were calling me an idiot at the time. Like today, people spend millions of dollars on a JPEG and nobody bats an eye, right? But like when I spent that money on mine, like people were like, oh, like this makes zero sense. And so I realized that there was this opportunity for me to kind of help educate people and help move the space forward in a different way, because I'm not a technical person, right? Like I'm not a dev. And so it's like, I think in order for crypto to go mainstream, and I fully believe, like, especially the NFT part of it, is NFTs are the Trojan horse that will take crypto mainstream, right? Because, and I see it now too with like the devs, the talent that's coming into the space. There is definitely a lack of Solidity devs in the space because everybody is working on projects at this point. But the interesting thing that you're seeing now with NFT space that you didn't see with DeFi is you're getting a lot of like your Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook engineers coming into the space, because consumer facing products is something we all understand because everyone is a consumer, right? Like I understand like what the science is or the thought process is behind, making a t-shirt and like getting somebody to want to buy it, right? Especially if I've been trained to do that at a major corporation. But like when you're creating like a DeFi protocol that's like, hey, like we're going to create this cool options protocol that like, will allow you to express whatever kind of options hedge you want. Like that's a very technical thing that only a very niche group of people will do. So I think that like by getting not only the talent but also the demand from like the consumer side into the NFT space, like we're going to start growing the space organically because so much money and talent is coming into it, right? Like when I first got involved with Ethereum in 2017, the reason why I was so interested in it, and I was more interested in that over Bitcoin, was because like I took a look at like the people that I think it's called like the Ethereum Developers Alliance or whatever. And he took a look at the organizations that were part of it. And I'm like, well, if these people are going to be throwing their resources at Ethereum over Bitcoin, that means more stuff will end up getting built on Ethereum, which will probably be more value accrual to Ethereum over the long term, right? And I kind of see the same thing happening with NFTs.
So
Follow the people, follow the money, and it gives you an indication of where the future is being built. That's basically what you're saying. I love it.
and I'll ask you the $1 million question that I think I get asked on a daily basis, and you probably get asked 100 times a day. How early are we? Right? I mean, listen, you're a smart guy. You traded equities. You're a finance guy. Everything you're saying to me makes sense. Now I'm in the space, right? But when I talk to some of my finance buddies, they're like, yeah, call me when JP Morgan has a trading desk for NFTs. And I'm like, buddy, at that point, it's not going to really matter anymore, right? Because
right, yeah. I mean, at that point, right, where there are exit liquidity at that point, right? But like I say that as a joke, but that's like the truth, right? Like the fact of the matter is, being so plugged into the space, I think a lot of times we get jaded. And so I really like to talk to people outside of the space. And I always am kind of running a tally of like, when people ask me, what do I do? And I'm like, I'll mess around. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, I collect JPEGs on the internet. But like when I'm serious, like I'll be like, hey, like I'm in the NFT space. Most people still don't know what an NFT is, right? So that the fact that most people still have no idea what an NFT is tells me that we're still so early at this point in time, right? Like if you take a look at like the crypto waves over the last decade, right? If you were to meet somebody that told you they were in crypto in 2013 or 2009, to us right now, that's still the same. That's like the same era. It's like, oh, you're an OG, right? those were two different cycles, right? Like in 2009, the price of Bitcoin was vastly different than the price of Bitcoin in 2013. Yet here we are almost a decade later being like, yeah, I mean, you're an OG, right? So if you fast forward 10 years from now, right, and you say, oh, I got into NFTs in 2017 or 2021, that's going to be like the same thing, right? Like it's like, oh, you were in so early, right? Like you saw something that nobody else did. And I think that we're going to see the same stuff play out with NFTs. I think it probably even happens faster just because I think like like collectibles and art are something that humans inherently understand, as opposed to, I think when Bitcoin was born, it's like a new tech. It was a new money technology, right? That had never been seen in the world. So you really had to have like this open paradigm shift in your head in order to go through with it, in order to understand it. But I think NFTs are like, you don't require as big of a jump to get it to get there, right? So I think adoption happens way more faster through NFTs, which is positive for crypto in general.
So I'm on the same view. I think we're going to see an accelerated adoption. NFTs are going to drive more people into crypto. But we started the show earlier, and you spoke about how NFT as a word is going to disappear, and it's just going to be, that's like cloud. It's just the way things are done. And if people are early today, and in 10 years' time, you'll still be early, the assumption that everyone makes the leap is then, well, these things are going to be worth 10, 1,000 times more, 100,000 times more, whatever that number is. Do you think that those two things exist at the same time? Because if we look at the world of cloud, the cost of computing, the competitiveness of it, as it became more ubiquitous, everyone is now using this type of software. The pricing came down, the frenzy around it has dropped. So are we in that certain point when a person now learns about NFT, says, shit, maybe this thing is going to be huge like you described, but I've missed it because the pricing is all going to correct as everyone starts to learn about it. And actually, I've missed the money-making opportunity out of being in the NFT ecosystem.
Well, I mean, I don't think using cloud technology is a fair parallel comparison. I think you want to use something like art, or let's say fashion, right? Like there's a million artists in the world. There's a million fashion brands. A new one pops up every day. Just because you didn't start a fashion brand 100 years ago doesn't mean you can't have a successful fashion brand tomorrow. And a lot of it has to do with like, the design and a lot of different things. That's not to discount, a brand that's been around for 100+ years, right? Because they have that heritage, and, and I think we'll probably see punks like in that, right? Like it'll be in that blue tier, but that's not to say that 5 years from now, somebody comes out with some really cool project that like changes the game. And, maybe at that point we have 100 million users in crypto, and, like that, the magic number right now is 10,000. If, 5 years from now, maybe the magic number is like 250,000, right? Like, and we don't know. Right. And so I don't think that you're going to see like some sort of, because I think tech is naturally deflationary. So I think using like the cloud comparison isn't that good. But if you use something like a retail comparison or some sort of consumer facing product where you will have different tiers, right? You're going to have your ultra high level tier, you're going to have your mid tier, and you're going to have your low tier, where people are going to go to what they like at the price point that they can afford.
That makes sense.
So what's next for Gmoney?
Well, I started my podcast about a month ago. It's we record live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And like, to me, it's like what I really am focused on is I want culture to meet crypto, right? Like that's where like I think right now we have like a little bit of a disconnect in the space where anytime someone that has like a reasonable following in the real world tries to come into the space, people automatically think it's a cash grab, whether or not that's true or not. But like, if I want to provide a platform, and I had enough conversations with enough people getting into the space where they would be telling me their story of what their NFT drop was about and why they were doing it. And I was like, you know what? I bet a lot of my followers would love to hear this conversation. I bet they would love to be a fly on the wall for it. So I'm like, if I can help somebody with a large following in the real world have a successful NFT drop, guess what? That helps all of us in the NFT industry that much more, right? Because then they're going to become a proponent for NFTs, right? If they have a bad experience with their first NFT drop, they're going to be like, oh, NFTs are a scam. Like, I'm never doing them again. And then it's probably 3 to 5 years before they even touch an NFT again. But if we can embrace these people, and part of that becomes, education, right? They need to go and share their story with the crypto community and help them understand. Like I've had conversations with a lot of people where I'm like, oh, like this guy, like he doesn't really care, or like he's not really that interested. And then like we get on the phone and he's telling me, he's like, yeah, man, like I was minting Bored Apes, like I was minting cool cats and like, flipping them and blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm like, oh, like you're one of us, right? Like, I'll buy your project. Like, like I'll support that. And I think that like the more we can communicate that over time, I think it's overall better for the community. So I really wanted to kind of express that and provide that platform for people to discuss what they're working on and help them be successful, right? Because that's ultimately what it's all about, right? Is helping onboard the next user. How do we get to 100 million users the fastest, right? It's like I'm trying to do my part of trying to educate as many people as I can to help them understand NFTs.
We had a big name do an NFT drop recently, well, in collaboration with Sandbox. We had Snoop Dogg releasing his NFT strategy. So I look forward to hearing him on your show. The Cutting Edge with Gmoney, reminder, 2 hours time every Wednesday live. So I'll be subscribing and listening to that. Stan, you were going to ask a question.
No, I was going to say that I just love every single guest we have and everybody I talk to in the community. It seems like it's the same mission, right? We're all a community. We want to onboard as many new members as possible. I think I take 10, 15, 20 calls a week where I'm just helping friends of friends, set up a Coinbase or a MetaMask account. And there's nothing in it for me, right? I'm not making $1 on it. I'm not charging for a service. I just want people to understand that there's this big world out there and the possibilities are endless. And once you kind of make that jump, I had a buddy of mine buy his first NFT the other day. I'm like, hey, you lost your virginity, right? You popped your cherry. The future is bright, my friend, and the possibilities are endless. And I love to see from your side kind of the same mindset and mentality, and kind of why Yossi and I do this show, right? We want to educate as many people as possible. We want those 10 million users, 20, 25 million users, whatever that number is.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Right. And that's our job now as a community, right? Is to educate as many people as possible. Cause like on the surface, when you hear about, oh, this JPEG went up, it went up 1,000% return, you're like, oh, well, that's like tulips all over again, right? Like I know that because I originally thought that when I heard about Bitcoin. But when you actually like sit down and do the work and try to understand it, and why does this have value? Why do humans give anything value for that matter? Like it starts to make a lot more sense. And like that's our job to educate everyone else.
I agree. My friend, it's been a pleasure. I know you have a hard stop. I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah.
We definitely want to have you back on the show again soon. It's been a fun experience. Yossi, any last words for our friend Gmoney?
Well, yeah, just want to echo what Stan said. Really could talk to you for hours. Love the insights. Where do people follow you, find out more, subscribe to your show? What's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok as Gmoney NFT. If you want to listen to the podcast live, it's recorded every Wednesday at 7, and then it's uploaded to my YouTube channel, which is also Gmoney NFT, as well as any like podcast services that you use like Spotify or iTunes. So yeah, like I said, is like at this point it's all education, and that's really what I'm trying to do at this point.
I'll leave on the comment we have from one of our viewers. Gmoney is a G. He needs more of a following on YouTube. Hashtag underrated. I can't.
Is that your brother? Is that your brother?
It's my mom actually, right?
Couldn't have said it better. Thank you for being on the show. We really appreciate it, and it was really fun going through the market movers and getting your insights. And we will look forward to seeing more Gmoney moves. And I, for one, am one of the people tracking your wallet, just so you know.
Thank you for your time, guys. I really appreciate it.
We'll see you soon, brother. Thank you. Wow, our first live avatar on the show. I'm excited. Going forward, anybody that wants to be a guest on the show, We need an avatar. There's no exception.
Otherwise, you can't come on. I love it. I think we should be changing to our favorite NFTs. I'm going to come back with my noun. I already think it looks like me when I was a kid. So, don't be so hard for me. I don't know what you're going to come on with.
I don't know.
That's the way to do it.
The whole time while I keep thinking about it, it's like, how did he do that? I definitely want to do that. How do we do that? We got to figure that part out.
Great having Gmoney on. Lessons, I think, someone who is an OG in the space, but an OG in the space pretty quickly. Managed to do that in just over a year, saw the trends, had conviction, doubled down into it, and played his own game. This was his strategy. As you heard, bought a punk for $150,000 at a time when everyone thought he was crazy and teased him, but knew what was coming around the corner because he saw the world of gamers. What 14-year-olds are doing today is what 40-year-olds are going to be doing in 10 years' time. And that is how you can see around corners, see the future, and potentially be participating in this growing ecosystem and economy, with the caveat that this is not financial advice. Nothing we say and share on this show should be construed as investment advice. Make your own decisions.
Just educational, having some fun.
For sure. It's for us to educate, learn, and grow as a community. So please do remember that. And before we end off, let us remind you about the easiest way for you to earn some NFTs, to win some cash money. We have the Goat Vault sitting in at over $47,000. It's got a series of NFTs that we're collecting every single week, and we're going to open up that vault to the people who are subscribers to our show. So click the like button, smash the like button, hit subscribe, and tell your friends because the vault is waiting to be opened.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just had a thought, like, I think it was Gary Vee who said it. He said, if you want to know what the next big thing is, pay attention to your kids. And it really is like completely different, right? Like when we were kids, I remember Saturday morning cartoons and whatever the Ninja Turtles or whatever was coming out, like our attention was there, right? Like that's what we wanted for our birthdays. And now there's no cartoons. Everyone's on YouTube, and it's like the kids are like, I want my favorite YouTube stars, merch. It's just a completely different
favorite
world.
TikTok stars merch now.
Exactly. And to that point, skins are freaking cool. I play Fortnite, and I'm totally okay with making that donation to skins. And that connected with me as well, looking at NFTs of having that, people are going to pay for skins, right? There's no difference than them buying that expensive shirt or how Gmoney said, a watch, right? When we go out, we're thinking about what we look like, what clothes we're wearing, what accessories we have, what cars we're driving, what neighborhoods we're living in. This is all that's part of our process. And now we're getting into the digital world of, what is our avatar picture? What kind of art are we collecting digitally? What's in our MetaMask wallet? And I think a lot of it is just now more than just finances, right? More than just dollars. It's kind of like you become attached to it, and it's something that's not even tangible.
We're seeing culture being reset before our eyes from the physical realm into the metaverse. And you are hearing how people are thinking about what is culturally relevant, what is art, what is valuable, and where they are placing their bets, being participants and creators of this new world in the metaverse. So we look forward to every week bringing on new guests, new thought leaders, sharing what we're learning, seeing what's happening in the market. And I'm sure next week is going to be equally as adventurous and filled with, boring stuff that happens in the NFT space.
Nothing happens in this world at all, ever. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys again next week when nothing's going to happen. Nothing.
Nothing.
Later, guys.
Adios.